Hello and welcome. I'm Siddharth Zarabi, and you're watching Business Today, live from Davos. And with me today, one of the foremost Indians in the global business arena, Punit Renjen, the global CEO of Deloitte, and someone who I may add is Rohtak born and has made it big in the world of business. Punit, welcome to Business Today. Thank you very much. It's great to have you at the India Today studio here. 2 years of the pandemic, Punit, and we've seen how business has changed and how much pain and transformation has happened, much of it forced, really. From your point of view, as you look across from your company, huge company, $50 billion plus in revenues, how has business changed? What are the fundamental transformations that you believe are here to stay?
First, it's great to be with you, and thank you for that introduction. It's great to be in beautiful Davos. It's different than what we usually experience when we come here.
A bit of climate change here.
Exactly. This is my 7th trip to Davos. Listen, what an interesting question to start with. First off, those 2 years were horrible. I mean, on a personal level, on a societal level, on a business level, they were just absolutely remarkable. But those 2 years, plus the war in Ukraine, I believe has profoundly changed the world. And I think we've gone, and I don't mean to say this with hyperbole, but I think this is one of those moments where it is a true inflection point. Similar to what happened after the Second World War, what happened after the fall of the Berlin Wall and the coming up with the internet. I think the world is profoundly changed. And what do I mean by that? The way that we work, the way that we interact with each other. I'm carrying a mask around.
Yeah.
And it profoundly impacted the way business is conducted. Digitization, for instance, there was more digitization in the last 2 years than there were in the last 10 years. I think the relationship that we have with our employees has changed. Hybrid work is here to stay. And I think it is also an opportunity for India in particular to take advantage of this inflection point.
Puneet, you recruit thousands every year. You're one of the largest Big Four consulting firms. Since we were speaking about how work has changed, what is the key transformation? Because during the pandemic, and just to give you an illustration, we saw some stocks ride the pandemic and now they are down. Similarly, what do you see as far as people and recruitment is concerned? A lot of people in India would push their children only towards IT careers now, even more so than in the past, for example.
Well, we recruit 70,000 people globally. We will grow in India. We're 90,000 professionals in India. We will add another 75,000 individuals or professionals in the next 2 to 3 years. So we've got massive growth plans in India and globally. What we are seeing is that people want to work for an entity that does more than its core profit motive. 86% of the 400,000 professionals that call Deloitte home are Gen Zs and millennials. Their number one issue? Climate. What does Deloitte do beyond its core profit motive? And so I think if you want to be successful in recruiting, one of the funnest things that I do is speak on college campuses. And invariably, if I speak in the United States or in Europe or in India, I'm always asked, what does Deloitte do beyond its core profit motive? So if you want to hire the very best individuals, you want to retain them, you must be purpose-led. And you must have a meaningful role in the communities that you live and work in.
Puneet, does this apply to the Indians that you recruit in
Absolutely.
India and globally? Are they equally conscious about environment? What is their level of aspiration?
Absolutely. I think there is a consistency. I think this generation consistently, they are interconnected across the globe. They know what is happening. And I think all of them aspire to work for entities that are meaningful contributors back into the community and actually have a point of view and are contributing on some of the big issues. You asked about the pandemic. One of the silver linings of the pandemic was that it allowed us to focus on things that really matter, like climate, for instance. And there's also a reordering in terms of supply chains. You're going from just in time to just in case supply chains for instance. So I think this is a great opportunity. And in terms of our people, one other aspect I want to talk about is hybrid work. And so the traditional come into the office 5 days a week type of mindset, we never operated that way. Being a consulting firm, we operated at client sites. But this notion of hybrid work and making sure that there is a fulsome focus on employees is very important.
Has your firm also been hit by the great resignation?
Well, I think it's a great reset. And we did see our turnover rates tick up a little bit, though they have modulated back. We will be hiring, as I said, close to 70, 80,000 individuals, and we will have a net add of professionals.
Okay. Climate change, since you spoke about that, that's real for India as well. We're used to high temperatures, but this season has been very bad, and I'm sure that's a key point. But I want to turn this conversation to Indian business, and we've seen a lot of transformation in the last 10 years. We've seen financial stress, as elsewhere in the globe, particularly in the Indian context. How are Indian companies changing with the shifts and transformations that are being driven by technology? The big debate in India is the big companies, organized companies growing at while the smaller informal sector is suffering because they are not competitive enough.
Well, if you walk around the promenade in Davos, the thing that struck me was the number of Indian companies that have pop-up stores along the promenade. I don't think in the 7 years that I've been coming, I haven't seen this level of Indian representation here at Davos.
That's a key point to hear from the Deloitte global CEO. Go ahead, please.
The other thing is the number of states. You've got Andhra Pradesh, Maharashtra, Tamil Nadu,
Telangana.
Yeah. And of course, India House. Yesterday I was walking down the promenade. I smelled samosas in Davos, India House. Okay. So I think India is really...
Do you miss your home state of Haryana, if I may ask?
Absolutely. I think Haryana should be here.
Okay. That's a message we'll try and get to Mr. Khattar for sure.
Absolutely. Chief Minister ji, idhar aao. What was your question again?
I was talking about how do companies in India see this shift, because you consult with so many of them. How are they changing? Because it's not just the top 50 or 100 Indian companies. The vast amount of Indian employment happens still in the informal sector.
That is true. But I think, look at India, the number of startups that you have. It's second, I believe, to the United States. The number of unicorns, I think, is second to the United States. So I believe that the larger companies certainly are becoming global entities. Many of the Tata companies, as a for instance, and some of the startups are making some innovative investments and innovative products. I'm very bullish on India. I've said this multiple times. I believe this is India's century. I think what has happened in the last number of months with Ukraine has certainly made it more difficult, more complex for everybody. But I still believe this is India's century.
Okay. Since you talk about Ukraine and its impact on global business, China plus one in the Indian context, certain companies, large companies, looking at India fresh from a manufacturing point of view, and the Indian government pushing manufacturing in India, the Atmanirbhar Bharat package. Is that going to work? What is ground level feedback telling you?
I think absolutely it is going to work. India, the number of the FDI amount that is coming into India is at record levels. There is a disconnect between perception, particularly in Asian economies like Japan and Singapore. We just did a study. 75% of the 2,000 CXOs that we interviewed were looking to invest in India, but there was a disconnect between perception as to what has changed in terms of ease of doing business in India, particularly with Asian investors, that we need to address.
Punit, in slightly simpler words, has it changed for the better? Because for the record, the ease of doing business rankings for the country have gone up consistently in the last few years. Yet you hear a lot of people talking about just the sheer difficulty of working on the ground in India. What has changed?
Well, the digitization of customs, for instance, is one such example. I think it's absolutely changed and for the positive. But as I said, perceptions need to change as well. I think the Indian community needs to do a better job explaining the changes, and there is more work to be done.
Okay, and that also devolves not just on the central government but states, because we spoke
Yes.
about states. There are a few here. I think all states need to come out and talk more about it.
Absolutely.
Puneet, let's also talk about the context that we are seeing Indian companies trying to get more manufacturing competitiveness and grab market share. Is that possible? Because China, for example, over the last 4 decades has built up such immense manufacturing capacity that they can outcompete everyone. What do you think Indian companies need to do to realign for a China plus one world?
Well, I think control what you can, but I think this is an opportunity. There is an opportunity to seize the moment. As I said, supply chains are being restructured, and just in case supply chain mindset is what I'm hearing from clients. And India is a good destination. Apple is looking at Vietnam and India. I just read that report earlier this morning. So I think it is important for India, both the central government, the state government, but also businesses to step up and seize the moment. By the way, China is going to be an important competitor. I'm not going to downplay that.
Absolutely.
But I think we can compete. India can compete.
One of the arguments, and we've heard this from Tesla, is give us import duty cuts so that we can import stuff into India. And the government has been pushing back. We're not getting into that. But is tariff driven competitiveness the key for India, or is it the domestic market as well and the export opportunity?
I think it's all of the above. The domestic market is huge, and a lot of investors into India, including Deloitte, is looking at not only the ability to serve globally from India. The 75,000 additional people that we will hire will serve multinationals from India. But we serve 80% of the large companies in India. The opportunity in India is huge.
Puneet, what would you tell the finance minister if she asked you, how do I attract companies into India? Should I cut tariffs or should I give them a better business environment at the local level? What would you say? Hypothetical question, but I'm going to try that.
Well, the finance minister is a very competent finance minister. I'm in no position to give her advice.
Okay.
So I'm not going to start giving her advice. She's done I think, a phenomenal job.
Puneet, India has always been a consumption-driven story. We now also have seen, along with the record FDI inflows, great export competitiveness emerge. Can that change? Can we really, over the next 2 to 3 decades, become a global powerhouse in exports of not just manufactured products, but even agriculture commodities, of which we actually do quite a bit?
The answer is yes. And I think, as I said, I'm going to pivot a little bit here. When I talked about the fact that this is an inflection point, take climate, for instance. I think India can certainly lead on the climate front. And what do I mean by that? Part of the solution is going to be nature-based outcomes. And I think India can take the lead. I mean, we're working with the government of Haryana on stubble burning. If you're from Delhi.
Oh, yes. Wow. Please talk about that. That's like
my mother lives in Rohtak. Every time I visit in November, December, the air quality is horrendous. And what we are trying to do is trying to come up with an ecosystem of players with an answer to incent the farmer to not take a 1 cent match and light the paddy stubble, but to reuse that stubble. I think it's a problem that is that will help India, but it's a problem that we can use, or the solution that we can use elsewhere in the world. Here's another thing that we're doing. We've got a program with the government of Haryana again called Climate Sakhi. We're using rural women, incenting rural women to increase the forest cover. Haryana has a 4% forest cover. The Indian goal is 22%. Some states are 31%. So using panchayat land and figuring out as to how you can incent local women to not only put in regenerative agricultural techniques, but grow forests is something that we are working on. And this is something that I think is a great opportunity in India.
Since we're talking about Rohtak and your roots, I want to, in the last part of our conversation, talk about your journey so far. You were an inspiration, a role model for many, many Indians. And I can say this on a formal interview. My younger brother has worked in your firm. They all look up to you. How's your journey been, Puneet?
Well, it's been a long journey, but I think it's been a wonderful journey. Listen, at 18 years of age, if somebody had asked me that or told me that I would be the global CEO of Deloitte, I would have said I wouldn't have believed him. And in fact, my mother and father at 18 years of age, when I decided not to go into medicine or to engineering, and you know how Indian parents are, they thought
That hasn't changed.
what was going to happen to poor Punit.
Yeah.
So it's been to me, in the least, a remarkable journey, something that was completely unexpected.
Punit, I'm sure if you were doing this live and taking questions, someone would say, a young man would say today, is there enough opportunity of the kind that you had when you were just out of school available for him? Because in a deglobalized world where the multilateral trade order is perhaps fraying at the edges, if not falling apart, do young Indians, boys and girls, have the same level of opportunity that you had?
Oh, absolutely. And the opportunity is not only in places like the United States, which is a wonderful country, took an immigrant, a brown guy like me, and gave me an opportunity to lead a 176-year-old firm, the first non-white to lead it. I think that opportunity now is available in India as well. It was not available in the early 80s when I left India. And so I think the opportunity is even greater. Now, I'm often asked, particularly by young Indian students, what is the shortcut? I don't know if there is a shortcut. I think it's taken me 36 years to become an overnight success. It's a lot of hard work. It's a little bit of luck and persistence.
I haven't heard more honest remarks, but just one more point on this. The Desi techie, coding is the future. Coding is the mantra that you need to learn for building a future. That's the mantra on campuses in India. Is that true? Is there life beyond just being an engineer or a doctor, like you said, in today's context and for the next 10, 20 years?
Well, I'm a good example.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know the first thing about coding, but I understand how human relations work, and I understand some of the social sciences. So I think there's a space for both. You need to have certainly technical skills, STEM skills help, but having some of the non-STEM skills are also important.
Punit, one final message to all of who are watching this interview. The India story for the next 20 years, a lot of doubt creeps in when we see things going wrong. Globally, how do you see India in the next 10, 20 years?
Which camera is it? That one or that one?
the one there.
That one right there?
Yes.
This is India's century. And you're lucky to be born in this India. Seize the moment.
Absolutely. Punit, thank you very much for your time with us today. That was Punit Renjen, the Global CEO of Deloitte, someone who makes Indians proud across the world. If you've been, thank you very much for watching.
If you like the video, do like, comment, share and subscribe.